Good afternoon. My name is Alfred Herrera, and I'm the Assistant Vice Provost and Director of the Center for Community College Partnerships at UCLA. I am honored to be here, and just a little bit about me for the next hour, and then, I am a first-generation Californian. My roots go deep. I'm the fourth generation to be in California. My dad's family founded the city of Irwindale. I don't know if any of you know where Irwindale is outside of LA. So been here a long time. My father was a laborer. My mother was a housekeeper. And very proud to say that it is because of my mother and father and my older sister that I am who I am today, because they instilled in me the ganas and the importance of staying true to your goal and your mission. So thank you, Mom. Rest in peace. And Dad. And my dad is 93 years old and probably freaking out because I didn't call him last night. And he's going to say, Mijo, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, sorry, Dad. But it is a pleasure to be here, and I'm thankful for the work that they put in raising us. I'm the fifth of 6 children. And I had the pleasure of that one person who believed in me in high school and pushed me to go to college, and where I met our next speaker, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So it is really beautiful to be here and to see all of you in here and to see what power we hold and can hold if we do things the way we need to do them. And so I'm really happy to see all of you here. Welcome to our second annual summit. We're looking at where the third one is, and I'm going to say it before Oscar says it, before Lupe says it, and everybody else who's been pushing me. It's not going to be at UCLA, but we're looking at a place, and so we'll figure it out and let you know soon whenever we can. I also want to thank Oscar for acknowledging the original inhabitants of the land of the Ohlone, because I was also going to do that, so thank you for doing that. I'm especially honored to introduce our next speaker. I'm honored not only because she's a woman of firsts, but a woman who has committed her life to provide leadership, to challenge, to rock the boat, and to ensure that we pay attention to those things that matter most, improving the lives of people in our community. I first met Hilda, and I have the privilege of calling her Hilda because I knew her before all of the accolades that she got. I first met Hilda when we were 17 years old. Why do you say, wow, it's not that long ago? Couple years, come on, It was the summer of, well, I'm not going to tell you the year. It was a summer. I'll give you a clue. It was the year that the album, yes, album, from Earth, Wind, and Fire came out. That's the Way of the World. I know you're going to Google it now, but you can go ahead. It's the year that album came out. And the reason I know that is because in our summer program where we met, we had peer mentors and counselors, and there were about 4 or 5 of them, and I think 4 of them were African American students at Cal Poly Pomona where we went. And that came out like the week before we were in this summer program, and we heard that album and those songs every day and night, in the morning. Reasons, Shining Star, That's the Way of the World. It was just the most amazing time. And when I hear those songs, even today, I think of her and I think of that time because they were great memories that helped shape who we are today. So I'm really excited. And as I thought about it last night when I was trying to write these remarks, I thought, reasons, perfect. Shining Star, perfect. And this is the way the world should be. So I want to thank you for being here. So we started at a summer program, and much like the ones that many of us run today. And it's a time when you have 17, 18-year-olds going into the first time before they were admitted to college, and we were there to learn a little bit about it. So here you are, 2 mocosos, several of us. There were actually 3 of us. Georgina was the third. And believe it or not, we were kind of shy at that point. And we're in the room, and you know how we all love icebreakers, right? I mean, you know, it's the first thing you tell your students to do, and you're all like, oh God, why do I have to do that? Well, we had an icebreaker, something like find somebody that you don't know and tell them that, you know, you like something about them. And I'm thinking, I don't know anybody here. And I stood against the wall, and people started kind of mingling. And I looked across the hall, and there was Hilda and Georgina standing by the wall. And we kind of were the only ones that weren't talking to someone. So we kind of migrated to each other, and that's how we first met. So here we were, two young kids who were not supposed to be there. And I say not supposed to be there because we're first generation. We're low income. We come from labor working parents. We're not supposed to be there, and we're not supposed to succeed. So here we are in this summer program that's really trying to help us understand what it is we need to do and who we need to be. We went through that. We both moved into the dorms. She was in the dorm next to mine. I have so many stories that she forbids me to tell you. But throughout our 4 years at Cal Poly, we became lifelong friends. Working as student recruiters in EOP, Education Opportunity Program, we were student affirmative action babies, and going back to our own high schools to recruit students because Cal Poly did not believe there were students worthy of being recruited at La Puente High School, where she graduated from, and Baldwin Park High School, where I went. But I am happy to say that we pushed and went back to those schools every year while we were there to ensure that these students saw the importance of that. Opening doors of the institution and opening the minds of the students and their families. Getting involved in a student organization that some of you might be familiar with, which continues to shape and develop us into fierce warriors. You know that little organization called Mecha? We were proud Mechistas. We were involved in the movement. We were involved in challenging the institution to make things better for us. We were challenged to lead. We led, we followed, we created a space for us. We had a place at Cal Poly called the Masa House. It was as big as this podium, and 18 of us were always there. We would work there, we would sleep there, we would, well, study there, all of those things that we do as students. And it was important. It was a really important, significant place for us because it was ours. It was a place for Latinos at Cal Poly to get together. And it was a 2 or 3 room little house, shack, but it was our space. After she graduated, she began her career working in the Carter White House, Office of Hispanic Affairs, and was later appointed as a management analyst with the Office of Management and Budget in the Civil Rights Division. She was first elected to public office in 1985 as a member of the Rio Hondo Community College Board of Trustees. Transfer. During this time, the fight for undocumented students was already underway. A group of educators were brought together by the late and great Arnulfo Casillas from Glendale College to work to help undocumented students get into college. Hilda and I, along with Irmar Chuleta, Juana Rodriguez, Dennis Lopez, Ramon Muniz, and many others, created the Leticia A Network to aggressively help students get into college. A network that changed lives, the students, the families, and also us, because many of us continue to be friends to this day. Hilda was the first Latina to represent the San Gabriel Valley in the California State Legislature. She served in the California Assembly from 1992 to 94, and in 1994, she made history by becoming the first Latina, sorry, I lost my place, Latina elected to the California State Senate. Her California environmental justice legislation, enacted in 1999, was the first of its kind in the nation to become a law, and a very powerful one at that. As a result of that bill and that law, she became the very first woman to receive the John F. Kennedy Profile in Courage Award in 2000 for her pioneering environmental justice work. Hilda won a very hard, challenging election from a longtime incumbent to become the representative for the 32nd Congressional District in California, a position she held from 2001 to 2009. In Congress, Hilda's priorities included expanding access to affordable health care, protecting the environment, and improving the lives of working families. A recognized leader on clean energy jobs, she authored the Green Jobs Act, which provided funding for green-collar job training for veterans, displaced workers, at risk, which I like to call at potential, students, and individuals and families under 200% of the federal poverty line. She served in Congress until her nomination for Secretary of Labor. Nomination by President Obama for Secretary of Labor. Let me let that sink in. Not only was she nominated and took the position, she was the first Chicana, Latina, to serve on a cabinet level position like that. So let that sink in for a moment. Prior to becoming the supervisor, she served as the Secretary of Labor under President Obama and was confirmed in February 24, 2009, becoming that first Latina. During her tenure, the Department of Labor was an active leader in promoting and implementing groundbreaking legislation in the Recovery Act and the Affordable Care Act. Legislation that had a direct effect on helping working families make ends meet, creating jobs, and in many cases, saving communities. While she was Secretary of Labor, she created 2.4 million private sector jobs to reboot the economy, strengthened the federal unemployment insurance program, helping dislocated workers stay afloat, and receive job training and placement assistance, and more than 1.7 million people completed federally funded job training programs. She invested in community colleges to provide local and employer-specific job training to millions of America. She worked closely with the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs to ensure that every returning service member had access to world-class career counseling and job training programs. For the first time ever, the Department of Labor, under her leadership, devoted significant resources to combat the misclassification of workers, to better protect employees and businesses who play by the rules. In addition to combating the gender wage gap, as secretary, she promoted greater work-life balance, workplace flexibility, paid leave, and employment opportunities for all women. Supervisor Hilda Solis was sworn in as the Los Angeles County Supervisor for the 1st District of Los Angeles on December 1st, 2014. She was elected to a new 4-year term in 2018. As County Supervisor, her priorities include combating homelessness and building affordable housing, expanding county services to all residents, environmental justice, good-paying jobs, health care access, criminal justice reform, and improving parks and open space, and ensuring arts equity for all. As you can see or hear, she has an impressive and long commitment to public service. Her distinguished career is an example of what one person can do to improve the living, education, and general conditions for our community. About 10 years ago, I was going through some boxes in my mom and dad's garage, and I found a box with some of the things from Cal Poly. In addition to a journal I kept, the things I read that I didn't remember. In addition to the journal, I found an EOP newsletter that was written when we were students. In the newsletter, there was a picture of the two of us and a woman named Vanessa DuBose, who was the three of us who were the recruitment team for EOP in there. There was an interview with us, and they asked us what we wanted to do. You know that question, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, and there was like, what do you want to do after you graduate from college? My response was, I want to be a counselor. Well, because that's kind of what I knew and who helped me. Her response, she was 19 or 20 years old, okay? Second year of college, maybe third year of college. She said, I want to become an elected official at the state and national level. Imagine that at 19 or 20 years old. That tells you the kind of woman she was and is. As you can see, she did that and so much more. She is without a doubt a leader, a champion, and a powerful presence in and for our community. A woman I am proud to call my very good friend, who has dedicated her life to being a warrior, with the reality of understanding how important it is to retain your goals from your community. She has never let go of the community that she comes from. She has spent her life opening doors, blazing trails, and making sure that we are at the table. We are not talked about without being at that table. We're engaged in those areas where policy drives practice. All this, and yet, as I said, she's one of those rare leaders who's remained humble, staying close to her community and her family, and she has a beautiful family who I know well, and remembering that it takes only one person to ignite that spark in someone, like Bob Sanchez, her high school counselor, did in her. I am truly honored and excited to ask my friend, my shiro, to come up and speak to you. I present Hilda Solis.
Let's hear it for Alfred Herrera. You know, I want to especially thank all of you for inviting me to come here. I felt a little awkward, I'll be honest, coming out to this event because I haven't delved as deeply in higher education for a number of years. But in all frankness, this is where it all starts. It is, as many of you have already said, and when I walked in, I heard some of the speakers talking about education being the equalizer and the clave. It's the key, and it continues to be the key. And there's no doubt about that. So I'm glad I'm here, and if anyone knows Alfred, he's very persistent. Can we agree on that? Yes. Okay. And Alfred is a very loving and giving person who I've known for more than, I don't even want to say 40 years, but that's what he tells me. It feels like it was maybe less than 15 years ago, though, because I see him periodically in my life and also in many of my different hats that I've worn, starting as a recruiter, a student recruiter at Cal Poly Pomona. And I want to especially thank UC and the system. I want to thank your president, Janet Napolitano, who also served in the Obama administration. And I did have the pleasure of working next to her and with her and serving in the cabinet and talking about issues regarding immigration reform and the Daca students and trying to really provide better assistance overall to the country in a very, very tenacious time. So I want to thank her for pulling this together with all of you and creating this leadership that now exists to advance diversity and inclusion. And so I love that there is a UC Chicano Latino Advisory Board, but it has to become permanent. Advisory board in and of itself denotes something. It doesn't denote permanency. So maybe at some point you won't have to have advisory, you will be the people that are actually there surrounding the UC president. I understand you'll have a new one perhaps in the coming year or in this coming year. And hopefully much of what is being talked about today will be a part of an adopted strategy as you all move forward. I want to also note John Pettis, who I also knew very well and served with while he was a speaker of the Assembly, and also as someone who represented East Los Angeles in the Assembly. I know he's chair of the Board of Regents, and I want to commend him for the work that he does and his commitment on behalf of this program and this effort. I also want to note Claudia Martinez, who I met many, many years ago when she was maybe 5, who is also now serving in the UC Office of the President and has been there for many years and has been doing some tremendous work. I met her many years ago when she was working for MALDEF. And many of you know what MALDEF is, a Mexican American Education and Legal Defense Foundation. And we met then back working on the Leticia A network and the decision. And that's how our lives kind of collaborated. So I want to thank her, and I want to also thank her parents, because her parents are somebody that I know, her father, who is now one of my commissioners serving in LA County, who is, I believe, in his 80s. He just celebrated his birthday. So we really want to thank our parents, and thank you, Claudia, for your hard work and your continued tenacity to make sure that Latinos and Latinas have a voice at the table at the UC system. Give her a big round of applause. To Francis Contreras, who I met, I want to say maybe 5 years ago. This was when I came back from the Obama administration and was trying to figure out what my next role in life would be. And I got to speak at her campus. I was invited to speak there at UC San Diego, and was very moved to see the leadership that she exhibited there and all the great work, and to hear her now and read about her research. And I did have the luxury of reading your report, and I would recommend it to everybody that's here, because there's some great noted data there that will help guide, I think, this group as you move along. And then to all of the advisory group members for the Hispanic serving institutions, the makeup of all of you that will help hopefully succeed in furthering that goal for all of the UC campuses. You have a lot of work ahead of you. You do, because times are not easy right now. As you know, they're very, very difficult. And while I think everyone here understands the importance of higher education, we still have so many barriers, and some were already articulated just by your own experiences, sharing how hard it was for you to get here, and for many of us to get here. My journey was very difficult as well. When Alfred mentioned that I had said something back in my college undergrad years that I wanted to be an elected official, I didn't know what I was talking about. The last thing I would say to my parents is that I wanted to get involved in politics, because they would say, that's not a carrera, that's not a career, Hilda. Why did you go to college? You know, weren't you going to go work in government and do something? I go, yeah, I thought about that. And I did. And I was very fortunate, though, as was pointed out, to come in contact with some really great people. And at that time in La Puente High School, you could count on one hand who was going to go to college, who was tracked to go to the military, who was tracked to go to other routes, and who just fell off the map. And I could count on that hand how many people were eligible to go to college. And I was very fortunate to be able to have a high school counselor whose name was Bob Sanchez, who was Irish and Mexican, who grew up in East LA. Not only that, but he had a disability. He had polio. So he had, one of his legs was shorter than the other. So he always reminded us students that, you know what, you think you have a burden to carry because of how you look or because you have a Spanish, surname, but I have a physical disability, and I'm not letting that conquer me. And here I am, a Mexican, like he would tell us that. And I'd look at him and I think, what's this guy talking about? But he got me motivated. He got me motivated. And because of him and the fact that he helped many like myself coming from a low-income family, we didn't even know we were low income. We were just, that was our life. And we were expected after graduation to go work. So it wasn't like, mija, you're going to go work for the county, right, Hilda? And that's exactly what I was told by another high school counselor who said, Hilda, you are not college material. So get that out of your head and go become a clerk and go work for the county of LA. Be a secretary, is what he said. So that upset me. That's one thing about me that is, I think, a characteristic that maybe some of you have, that fire in the belly, the ganas, that little spark that says, wait a minute, I can determine where I want to go. And I think I can make those choices. So with that, I challenged myself and then started to think about how I could be successful if I did go to college. Being the first one in the family, I was not the first in the pecking order, I was number 3. But soon figuring that out and making friends and knowing how to navigate the system and working alongside not just the EOP staff, but also other people, other campus members and faculty was very important, because it wasn't so much just about getting in the door, it was about retention. It was about being able to stay, to withstand, and make sure that you met all the criteria to continue to receive your financial aid. Because if you messed up on your financial aid, you weren't in school. And I think sometimes we don't really realize how critically important it is for our students to have people help navigate for them. Whether they come in the front door and they make it is one thing, but to stay there, have the tenacity, and you see it in the figures with respect to actual graduation rates. We get a lot of students who come in, but many don't always successfully complete that education in 4 years, 5, some are on the 6 and 7 and 8 year plan, right? But how do we keep focused so that those students continue to stay there? And that's where you all come in, making sure that that happens, because I hope someone did that for you to help the retention component that's so needed, that has to have more money, by the way. And I'm one that really believes in programs like retention programs, like EOP, and the other assisted programs that are serving our young people. And I'll tell you, it was hard even then to be an EOP student, because there was that stigma that, oh, you got in here because of your last name and the way you look, not because you had merit or achievement. And I will go further and say that even using tests like the SAT and the ACT are very harmful to our young people. And I know that debate's going on right now. And I say that because many of our schools, unfortunately, maybe many of our public schools, still don't understand. I don't want to say that they don't understand. I want to say that many of our schools don't have the capable faculty and staff and counseling entities there to help young people understand the importance of taking rigorous college work. And some of those schools don't even offer AP and honors classes, even in the districts that I represent now, in East LA and the San Gabriel Valley and in Pomona. So can you just imagine what we're faced with, that we still have this other struggle that we have to beat. I decided that I wanted to do something different in my life, and I wanted to give back. And I think just what Alfred had talked about in my past, getting involved in different legislative arenas, but also understanding the goals and aspirations of young people, many that I know you come across. I had the privilege of running a state education program, quite frankly, during the same time I ran for my first public office. And that was the California Student Opportunity Access Program. It's a program that's been around over 20 years now, and it functions through the California Student Aid Commission. And the whole goal there is to try to assist youngsters, get them into college, get them a financial aid package and admissions. And that's how I think I was able to really understand the importance of how our institutions have to work together. And that continues, I think, to be our hallmark. So here we are now. And you saw the figures, the data that was presented about how we are doing demographically. We know that most of our public schools in California have 60 or 70% Latinos that are enrolled. But I would venture to say that many of them are not prepared academically because of the various factors. We don't have the rigorous achievement requirements. We don't have, in many places, good counselors. The ratio for counselors to some students in our districts in East LA is about 2,000 to 1. So you're lucky. It's almost, I hate to say it, it's like I hate to use this word, but it's a crap shot. Unless you have someone helping you navigate, or you understand the importance of what that education can mean to you. So it's always drilling down on that, making sure that we have good people that understand that not all of our children are equal, and especially in our school system. And it reflects itself unless you break down those barriers. And so once we do get success and we see more of our youngsters now entering into college, and I'm hopeful because I have seen some numbers change, that's good. But the retention part is very important. And the continuance of getting more young people to think about getting advanced degrees is even more important. And I see it as an economic indicator for us and where we go in our future. Because I represent the county of Los Angeles, which is one of many counties here in the state, but it's one of the largest in the country. We have over 1,100,000 employees. And many of the positions that we provide are very highly skilled. Some are in policy, some are IT, some are in accounting, some are real estate, some are also in health. And we don't have in many instances, the quality of candidates that are applying. And I would tell you that right now we have 36 departments that we oversee, that there are 5 board of supervisors. I'm one of those. And just this last 2 years, I want to say, we were able to change the face of the actual executive directors for at least 6 departments. We now have 6 Latinos and Latinas running these departments. So I would say to you that it is important to be at the table and to speak up, but more importantly, doing that in coalescing with other people. So if you have an African American, a Latina, or a woman, or someone else, or someone who gets what our goals are and our values are, you need to connect with them. The value of networking continues and coalescing. And that's exactly what we've been able to do. And I would further remind you, I saw in one of the slides that there are campuses that are on the verge of becoming Hispanic serving institutions. And it's important for you to be advocates in the legislature to convince people that you need more resources to be able to attract and retain students and have faculty and staff be a part of that. But more importantly, you don't have to just go to the Latino caucus. You coalesce with the Black caucus. You coalesce with the Women's caucus, with the Environmental caucus, and you start identifying those districts where you have a majority of Latinos, 25% or more, that make up the voting population and base. And you start to have a strategy. And that's how you start to make real impact in terms of the budget in Sacramento and even federally, at the federal level, because Hispanic serving institutions, your funding comes from the federal level. And that's really critical because that's money that will come in to your campuses so that you can create retention, recruitment, and all these other support systems that are necessary. If you don't do that, then you only have yourself to blame, or the leaders, because you're leaving money on the table. You are leaving money on the table, and you need to know that. So I would just say that that's something to think about as you move forward when you are on the verge of becoming a Hispanic serving institution. There's a lot I could say. One thing I will tell you that I didn't hear mentioned is that at the County of Los Angeles, we created a Management Fellows Program. So just like a Senior Fellow Program, many corporations have these. Have you thought about that? Creating a program where you can actually provide the monetary support and positions, and then have those positions rotated to different campuses. So you really get a good sense of how institutions of higher learning operate, and you can start to build on that. We do that now, and many of those individuals that have gone through that program are now our directors for our departments that oversee anywhere from maybe 4,000 to 3,000 people. So it's workable, but you've got to really think about the commitment, the cost, and what that would entail. I would just say that that's something to think about for you. I would just say also is that your focus on transfers. I know Alfred and others are very, very focused on trying to get students, Latinos, from community colleges to transfer. That's really critical, really important. But again, it's not just coming in the front door, it's retaining and keeping those individuals. And it's also incentivizing your core services that you provide there, incentivizing people if they do bring something different that's tangible. You had something to talk about, I think, centering around the environment, the climate of a campus. Why can't you incentivize people that speak 2 or 3 languages, that maybe understand the lived experience of what people go through, and give them a stipend for that? Encourage them to do a little bit more. And I bet you're going to see many, many benefits from that. I think those are ideas that aren't new, but I certainly would think that those are things that you might want to think about. I want to say a little bit about Daca, because that is really critical. And I think some of you know that back many, many years ago, this was before Marco Fireball, the assemblyman, we were a part of a network. And that's where discussions about trying to get youngsters who didn't have their papers, only we didn't know how many there were. In fact, in the program that I ran, California Student Opportunity, I had several students who were considered DACA. Some of them made it through the system, and one I could recall is now working for the U.S. Forest Service. So things are possible. people can make a difference. And I think for all of you, bringing them, embracing them in the institution and fighting for them, whether it's in the court system, is very laudable. Continue to do that. The Supreme Court has not made a decision yet. So it would behoove you to get your students and your colleagues to get on a letter writing campaign or email campaign and let your Congress people, as well as this administration and others, know where you stand and how important it is. And the types of things that these individuals have already demonstrated by already paying up to $2.1 billion in federal taxes and $1 billion alone in local and state revenue. These people, what people? There are people. But once they become educated and they get into these very top level positions, come back and they contribute. They are probably one of the most worthiest groups that I can think of right now when we talk about immigration, that deserve to have the ability to stay here and get into the process of becoming a citizen. And that's going to continue to be our fight under this current administration. Don't give up. A couple of weeks ago, I think a couple of weeks ago, if not 2 months ago, we celebrated the defeat of Proposition 187. How many of you remember Proposition 187? I do. I remember walking downtown Los Angeles with a coalition, African American, Asian, religious leaders, Latinos, Latinas, coming out and saying, we are not going to stand for this. Well, we lost the battle in terms of the initiative, but we won in the courts. And so that was a lesson, and it helped to incentivize our community to go out and register to vote and to become citizens and to fight for their rights. And what you see happening, I think now, even in this current administration, is kind of a return to that kind of psyche. And we have to say, no, this is not acceptable. We can do more. And we need to coalesce with other groups, other immigrant groups, to do that as well. I think that's important. The census. Census is important. You're going to say, well, what is she talking about? Census, taken every 10 years, helps to provide funding for education, for health services, for Head Start programs, and possibly how monies are even divvied up in our educational system. You have the ability to motivate people to participate in that. And right now, we know that there are many people who want to stay away from having to give any information to the federal government about their well-being. But you can't use that information against anyone. It's constitutionally forbidden. So people need to participate, and we always have an undercount in the Latino community. And it's only hurting ourselves. It's only hurting ourselves, because that money won't come here. It'll go to Arkansas. It'll go somewhere else. It won't come to LA, won't come to San Francisco, won't go to San Diego, won't go to Yuba, won't go to Central Valley. It'll go somewhere else when we know we need it here. So I hope that you all will understand the importance of participating and making sure that our young people also vote. This coming election is critical at every level, whether it's the water board, the school board, presidential, obviously, your elected officials. And not all elected officials are equal. Sometimes we have people that represent pockets of our community that can significantly be persuaded to support our values if they're approached. So I would think that beyond just this group talking about how you want to talk about UC system and changing things there, how else can you use your body of politic here, to help persuade other investments around your campuses and around better education? And again, I have to just remind you, you don't have to go to just the Latino caucus. Go to folks where there's a sphere of influence, where you have a good number of minorities or underrepresented students where you can have an impact. People listen. Legislators listen. And that's a power that we have as a community. So I'm going to conclude with that and just say that I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to see so many people that I've known and so many people that have helped to form who I am. But I will say this lastly to you. Never in my wildest dreams, and I think my parents even knew this, that I would ever see myself working for the United States president, the first woman, Latina, Mexicana, Nicaraguense, my mom's Nicaraguense, to be represented in our U.S. government. And when I go out and I tell students that, young kids, they go, huh? How come I never heard of you? Well, it doesn't matter. But do you know who the last president was? And their eyes just grow because they know who he was. And that was Barack Obama, who also, I have to tell you, was a financial aid student, was raised by his grandparents, and he did not have a father in his life. Talk about struggles, okay? So we are no different from some of these leaders that we look up to, because we also have trailblazed, we also have given a lot of sacrifice. And you have to know that some of us in this world do recognize your contributions and would like to see more people engage in the public sector, because all of you are public servants. Even though you may not be elected, you're a public servant. So thank you very much for having me here, and good luck today and tomorrow, and the fight goes on. And dale todos tus ganas, lo que puedes, y hazlo. That's all I could say. Just do it. Thank you.